Leopold Aschenbrenner, a former OpenAI researcher, was fired from OpenAI's superalignment team in April over an alleged leak. This June, a 4.5-hour podcast interview was released with Leopold on Dwarkesh Patel's podcast. And in this video, we're going to break it down, go deep into the rabbit hole of his 165-page essay called Situational Awareness, the Decade Ahead, if there's any basis to some of the big predictions Leopold is making, and a look at his timeline from AGI to ASI and Superintelligence. Will we have superintelligence by the end of this decade? Hey there, if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Julie McCoy. I used to be a human writer. I had a team of over 100 writers. I sold it when I saw GPT on the horizon, and now I work full-time in AI, working on functional AI solutions for the masses with some amazing, bright people. If you're excited about what's ahead, you want the facts on what's coming from the perspective of a true optimist, welcome. That summarizes my channel. Here we go far deep down the rabbit hole of artificial intelligence. Like any good student or user of AI, I went to ChatGPT and I looked up some custom GPT plugins to help me summarize that 4.5-hour interview between Leopold and Dwarkesh Patel and that 165-page essay. The YouTube video summary I got was pretty good. I'll distill it in this video. So was the PDF summarizer, both from custom GPTs in ChatGPT. Leopold Aschenbrenner talked about the exponential growth curve of AI and something called the $1 trillion cluster. His essay and that 4-hour interview and the summaries I broke down from them gave some pretty thorough insights on the scale of AI. The projection is that AI clusters are going to need the equivalent power of large nuclear reactors by 2026, and the need for power will grow even more by 2030. Over the next decade, AI clusters will scale quite dramatically. Leopold shared in his interview with Dwarkesh that by 2024, clusters will need around 100 megawatts of power and 100,000 high-performance GPUs. The cost, billions of dollars. By 2026, this will expand to a gigawatt cluster, equivalent to the power of a large nuclear reactor like Hoover Dam. This will require tens of billions of dollars and 1 million GPUs. And by 2028, Leopold was saying the scale will increase to a 10 gigawatt cluster, more power than what's generated from most US states, costing hundreds of billions. And by 2030, we're projecting a $1 trillion cluster, consuming 100 gigawatts of power using 100 million GPUs. Leopold correlated the intelligence of AI models and something he called the intelligence explosion. Leopold is an amazing writer. The essay he wrote is full of deep thought. He was actually in the superalignment team at OpenAI. He got to see firsthand how some of this was built. And of course, as we see in the essay, he doesn't really trust OpenAI. He believes there's a huge lack of security and that they are even opening up themselves to espionage from China. And when he brought that to the HR team, he was fired and told that he was racist. Leopold's prediction is that by 2028, we are going to have 10 gigawatt data centers in operation, and that this will give us the potential for achieving true AGI and superintelligence. We are going to see the capabilities of AI models explode once we have the power to run these models, and the time from the discovery of said power to run these models to the explosion of those models creating superintelligence will be very short. Leopold believes that by 2027-2028, AI will perform long horizon tasks autonomously, essentially acting as remote workers. Leopold dedicated his essay to Ilya Sutskever, which is really interesting to me because I think that Ilya is one of the brightest minds at OpenAI, unfortunately no longer there. We don't even really know what he's up to. He could be building AGI with Elon Musk for all we know. I think we will find out in the coming weeks or months. On page 2 of his essay, Leopold did admit that some of the essay is actually based on SF gossip, San Francisco gossip. So I think we have to take this entire essay with a grain of salt. That said, Leopold raised some very logical, deeply thought through points that are 100% likely. He presented this idea of the growth of orders of magnitude, OOM, and how GPT-2 to GPT-4 was a leap that took us from preschooler to smart high schooler in just 4 4 years. And if we look at trend lines in compute, algorithmic efficiencies, and unhobbling gains where we go from chatbot to agent, he believes we're going to have another qualitative jump, much like preschooler to high schooler, in another few years. He's predicting 2027 with ASI by 2028 or 2030. He laid out how we are in a race to creating the $1 trillion cluster. I think this is backed up because we see Microsoft and Elon Musk raising insane amounts of capital to build supercomputers. The thing that's more important than AI itself is the compute necessary to run AI. The other problem we aren't talking enough about, and this was something the founder that I work with at Continent Scale, who is incredibly bright, raised, is that we're going to need to see quantum computing come out to run this large-scale compute necessary for systems like AGI and especially ASI. The idea is that when ASI is here, it could potentially run world governments because it can be in all places at once. But that's just not possible on the computing we have today. Quantum computing harnesses the laws of quantum mechanics to solve problems that are too complex for the classical computer system. At the subatomic level, quantum computers take advantage of the microscopic level to perform computations in a completely new way. The processing power it runs on is qubits, something completely different from bytes. Currently, quantum computers aren't ready for prime time. In fact, we've been supposedly on a breakthrough in quantum computing for years now. However, MIT researchers published this study in January of this year, and they're estimating that 5,000 quantum computers will be up and running by 2030. This coincides very well with Leopold's prediction of the $1 trillion cluster and the idea that ASI will be up and running at the end of this decade, 2029, 2030. But researchers also believe that the hardware and software necessary for quantum computing won't even be finished till 2035. So we might have quantum computers up and running by 2030, but will they even be built out enough to be ready to handle compute in entirely new ways? That's the question. I think Leopold's points about securing the development of AI systems are important, and world leaders should absolutely be paying attention to this. One of the authors I read, Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, has written a book on the race for superintelligence and AI, and he lays out how China has absolutely no qualms whatsoever with doing whatever it takes to win the race, whether that's straight up copying an innovative American tech leader, which they've done for years, or resorting to very unethical measures. But should we be surprised? This is the history of China's government. However, I don't think that China should be the one to win the race for ASI. Becoming one world under China's leadership doesn't really sound all that fun. But I can't say I'm too confident in US government leaders either. I think that the race for AGI and ASI needs to be won by the tech innovators, by the entrepreneurs, the people that originally brought us wealth and prosperity through capitalism, which is going to need to be completely reinvented, and concepts like UBI brought successfully into the mainstream to handle what we're going to see with complete job automation thanks to AI. I think a lot of Leopold's points made in both the interview and his 160-page essay are pretty solid. He's obviously a deep thinker, very logical, has that background in the superalignment team at OpenAI. But in page 2, he does disclose that, hey, my essay is based on my own ideas and San Francisco gossip. Will we have ASI by the end of the decade? The truth is, with no clear timeline on new compute infrastructure like quantum computing, it's really hard to predict this for sure. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you watched the interview with Leopold Aschenbrenner, if you read any of his essay or his work over at Situational Awareness, I really enjoyed reading his content. I was actually up one night till almost 2 a.m. just reading through his posts because they were so deeply thought through and well written. He reminds me of some of my favorite authors. So if anything, it's a great read. I hope that you enjoyed this jump down the rabbit hole of AI. Let's keep exploring this new frontier. We are living in unbelievable times, and there is a new world ahead, should we choose to take advantage. I'll see you down the next rabbit hole.